Hello everybody, and welcome to Lurgan Farm here for Open Farm Sunday, live on Facebook. You're here at Lurgan Farm with Martin Kennedy, and my chauffeur today is Katrina.
Hi.
Hi. So Katrina's going to drive us about and let you see what we're doing to help with climate change and biodiversity, and what we are doing with some of the things we're doing on farm. So it was a fantastic morning. As you can see now, the rain's just gone off again, so hopefully it'll stay good enough for us to get further up the hill, have a look at what the Highlanders are doing. So what we're going to do just now is we're going to start off here in a field of young grass, and it's going off enough I think I can just jump outside and let you see what's happening here. So what we have here, when it comes to climate change, farmers and crofters throughout Scotland and indeed right across the UK are leading the way when it comes to addressing climate change. Still looking at biodiversity, trying to enhance that, but first and foremost is about producing food. We need to remember we've still got to produce food because we don't have a country unless we can feed ourselves, so that's really, really important. But we've got to do it in a manner that addresses climate change and looks at biodiversity. So some of the things we've been doing here for the last 9 years, and we're at a farm at Lurgan Farm here in Highland Perthshire. We're 800 feet above sea level. The farm goes to 2,500 feet, so it's got its own challenges. But what we've done for the last 9 years is we haven't done any ploughing. Now I'm not saying that's the best thing for every scenario, but it's working very well for us. This field I'm in here just now is a field of young grass. This was we have 60 cows here and we have 600 breeding ewes. And this is a field of young grass that last year we took silage off it for a first cut, and then we did use glyphosate. We burnt it off with glyphosate, one single spray, and we direct drilled the field with fodder rape. As a result of that, we got a very good crop of fodder rape, and then what happened was this spring we just lightly cultivated the top of that ground and direct drilled and broadcast the grass seed in the top, and we've got all the goodness and fertility from feeding these lambs on the ground, and it's keeping that soil structure in great health and absolutely maximising its carbon capturing capability. So as you can see, we've got quite a good sward of grass here. Hopefully you can see that. Good ryegrass mix, a lot of clover in it, which in itself is nitrogen fixing and helps to actually feed that other plants that's there. So this is a good sward of grass. It's already been grazed twice by ewes and lambs. Then once we spain the lambs, we put about 120, 130 lambs on here at spaining time about a month, 5 weeks ago. This is only a 5.5 acre field, and they're actually doing very well on here. Now as we go up the hill, I'm going to show you there's a field of turnips across there, a field of swedge. This is the first time we've done this, the first time we've tried this, but we did exactly the same there. But we didn't take silage off it, but we did burn it off with glyphosate. I know there's issues around glyphosate, but from an environmental perspective we need to make sure that we recognise the benefits from an environmental perspective, because that's allowing me here not to plough, and we'll manage to direct drill a lot of our fodder rape, turnips and kale that we feed the lambs off, because the more we can do that from the soil and increase that soil fertility, the better. So we're going to have a pretty quick tour today if we're going to try and get up the hill. So we'll just jump into the car, jump into the pickup, and Katrina will take us round, and what I'll do is I'll show you what we're doing when it comes to soil testing. Now I have in front of me, and I'll try and show you this is a map of what we do. We're entering now in the 5th year of a soil mapping programme where we GPS soil map the fields, and it highlights in all the areas from lime, phosphate, potash and magnesium where we have the deficiencies and where we have plenty there. So it's for soil health, it's really imperative that we look after that soil health. As you can see, some of the lambs there are enjoying that grass. Hopefully they'll keep growing. So soil health is absolutely imperative if we want to grow a crop and we want to be as productive as we possibly can be. Now being productive is not about producing more, it's about trying to produce more from less so we can minimise our inputs and maximise our outputs. So that's why we're trying to do this. So what we've done, this was last year's soil sample, and it's highlighted where we are low. This one's relevant to lime, and it highlights exactly where we need to put lime on the fields. So it's trying to level up the fields. So what happens with this is that technology that's used is then fed into the computer and the tractor. The tractor then slows down or speeds up the flow of the table and the lime spreader, so only puts lime on the soil where it's required. So it levels up the field. So we're not putting outputs, so we're not putting lime on areas where it's not required. We're only putting it on where it's required. Now from a soil testing, soil mapping programme, we're a livestock farm here, but the arable sector have been doing this for quite 2-3 decades now, or certainly a couple of decades now, and the arable sector have led the way when it comes to soil health and soil management. But there's a lot can be done on the livestock sector as well, which is really, really important. We've got to remember, particularly in Scotland, we're 85% less favoured area, so that means that although we can't grow an awful lot of crops, we can produce livestock very well, and we're in a great position to do that. But soil health is absolutely vital. And given for example, we're just going to stop here in a second, given for example the price of fertiliser right now, farmers and crofters throughout the country can't actually afford to put fertiliser on when it's the cost that's there. So it's not in our interest to waste any inputs we put in. So very, very quickly, I'm just going to jump across into this field of turnips. As I said, this field was actually sown quite late. This field was sown quite late this year. It was sown the 12th of June, and realistically up in this part of the world we should really be sowing turnips about sort of 12th of May. So this is, as I say, this is direct drilled. It's just straight into grass. Hopefully you can you see that? Hopefully you can see that. There's some fair turnips there. These are sown at 6-inch spacing, and it's sown, a sowing rate is 400 grams to the acre, and it's direct drilled straight into the pasture. Now we've got a lot of shaws here, but we've also got a lot of bulb as well. So once this gets about another probably 3-4 weeks, because turnip sweds in particular will grow well into October, then we'll feed this off with lambs again, and then next year we'll do exactly the same as what we did in the first field, and we'll lightly cultivate the field, and then broadcast and lightly harrow the grass in, so that we're back into 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 years of good productive grass that allows us to grow enough silage to feed the stock in the winter. So we need about between silage and, okay Katrina, thank you, between silage and hay we need about 1,000 bales per year, and that allows us to feed the livestock in the winter, which is absolutely imperative. There's nothing worse than not having enough fodder to feed your livestock through the winter, and it always seems to be in a scarce year when it's more expensive. But this year, fortunately, we've had a fantastic year for growth, and I've got some, I'll show you what the hold up is here. As you can see, sometimes the cows here, you're probably better looking at some of the cows than looking at me, we'll maybe just drive across here and we'll see the bull and some of the other cows here. These are some of our spring calving cows. I hope I'm pointing the phone in the right direction. I'll maybe just get out here very, very briefly. They're all quite quiet lumps. Come on, Max. This is our limousine bull, Max. He is very friendly, incidentally. So he's quite a lump of a guy, but he's about 7 years old now, but very, very friendly. As you can see, we're very green here just now, which is remarkable considering we're near the end of September. And again, you can see some of the, I'll maybe go a bit closer to the fence here. This is our breeding ewe lambs across here, doing a wonderful job of grazing this grass. But I think we've always got to remember, when it comes to grazing grassland, if we look after the soil health, what we're doing is we're maximising the carbon sequestration, because climate change is all about our emissions and our greenhouse gas emissions, and we want to be able to do as much as we possibly can to sequester as much carbon as we can do. And given how green we are just now, through good soil management and obviously a good season, I have to say, you know, these are our ewe lambs here, and they're doing a wonderful job of grazing that. But what is really important is, because it's green right now, we're sequestering as much carbon as we possibly can. So we'll just jump back into the pickup again before the cows do. Come on, lass. There we go. And now we'll start heading up the hill a little bit further. So yeah, as I say, soil health is paramount, and we could be doing more than that. The arable sector, as I said earlier on, have been leading the way with this, and there's some of the other calves there, and good to see them. I'm sure everybody likes seeing livestock, so hopefully you'll get an idea of what we're all about on this farm here. So as I said, we're quite high, we've got a lot of challenges here, but this is a fantastic way of life. There's no doubt about it. I wouldn't want to do anything else. We want to be able to, when we can, make a pound, because if we don't make a pound in agriculture, we will not invest, and if we don't invest, then the economy begins to struggle, because from a Scottish perspective, agriculture and the food production is the biggest industry in Scotland. Scotland, food and drink, it's fantastic. It's a huge industry. Right throughout Scotland we'll have about 63,000 jobs directly involved in agriculture, and there's about 360,000 jobs on the back of that through food and drink. So it's vital that we can continue to produce food right throughout the UK. What we'll have to recognise sometimes is we're now only 60% self-sufficient in food throughout the UK. That is a concern, because not that many decades ago we were 80% self-sufficient, and that is really worrying, because if we can't produce food here, and this is very relevant to climate change, we will simply offshore our emissions and import food from other parts of the world that don't share the same concerns that we do when it comes to climate change nor the environment. And just as we're driving up here, I'll just let you see what's happening out here. This was a clear fell wood. We're actually tenant farmers on a shooting estate. My father came here in 1946, and there's always been a lot of shooting going on, and I feel that the shooting fraternity always gets a very unfair, a bit like farming sometimes, it's very unfair how it's criticised, but the reality is the biodiversity we have in this farm is fantastic, and a lot of that is due to elixir predators being under control and being able to make sure we have a lot of ground nesting birds here, peewits, lapwings, curlews, and they're only there because predators are under control. So in spite of the fact that this is a shooting estate, it brings a huge values when it comes to helping with biodiversity. There's game crop put into the farm, and the biodiversity that thrives from that is fantastic. So I sometimes forget that, and I just wanted to mention that. In fact, we're just going up here a couple of yards. I'm just going to stop very briefly. I think we're okay for time. I know everybody wants to go up and see the Highlanders, and hopefully they're not too far away. I just want to show you something very quickly, because when you see things like game crop, small woodlands, small plantations, all help when it comes to carbon sequestration, but what we've also got to remember is a big help when it comes to biodiversity as well. So it's getting a little bit windy. I hope you can still hear me. Here's a classic example where there's been strips in fields. This is a fantastic wildlife corridor. Yes, there's pheasants in here as well, but for wildlife it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, you look across, I'll have to try and hold this phone a bit more steady than what I'm holding it, I think. You look across where we are just now, the biodiversity we'll have is tremendous. But this is integrated with agriculture, of course. We've got to remember that, and we can do that as one. Here's another strip. Another strip going up the side of this field here. Great for biodiversity. So I better shut this gate, because I'm the world's worst for complaining about people not shutting gates. And I'm just hopeful the gates have all been left shut when we get further up the hill, so that we can actually see the Highlanders. So again, we'll go halfway up here again, and I'll show you what's happened here. So we're getting up to close to 1,000 feet now, but it's amazing what you can do in this land if you do look after the soil. And the productivity, I know we've seen a big difference over the last 8 to 10 years since we've had a different approach to soil management, soil health, and again it's trying to help that bottom line. I'll just jump out here again, so just to let you see. So this is the field that we know across here is Peasy's field. It's been known as Peasy's field for as long as I can remember, and generations before that. And the reason it's known as Peasy's Field is because of the amount of peewits that's been on it, traditionally for years and years. It's fantastic to hear in the springtime. When you come here at end of May, beginning of June, all you hear is oyster catchers, lapwings, curlews, and that's great to hold on to because biodiversity is so important. And every farmer I know wants to do their utmost when it comes to helping biodiversity. So again, this is fields very similar to what we've done further down the road. This was 4 years ago now. This field was in kale. The field next to it 3 years ago, and the field on the far side of that one over there 2 years ago was in kale, and we just work that rotation and we try and get round the whole farm in about probably very maximum 10 years. 7 to 8 years grass leaves what we're looking at, and we'll cut it alternately. And what we started doing now, okay, thanks Trine, what we're trying to do now is cut it 1 year and graze it the next year. So that has a number of benefits in terms of you're not too sore on the ground. It helps when it comes to grazing, especially with trying to keep your grazing clean as well. Because when it comes to climate change, efficiencies, animal health is very, very important. And the more we can look after animal health and be efficient, then the more beneficial that is when it comes to climate change. So there's a lot going on in agriculture just now. And I think, you know, we can do more. And what's going to help that is allowing us to do what we see is fit for each farm, and that comes to, and I'm not going to go into politics. I've got a very, very bad habit, being NFUS president, of going into the politics of issues, but I think farmers and crofters need to sometimes be recognised for what they're doing as well as being asked to do more, because there's so much of Scotland's landscape has been carved, shaped, looking the way it is because of agriculture and food production. So when we get to the top of this field here, I'll show you a scheme we've been in, an agri-environment and climate scheme we've been involved in since the very first one, back in the early 80s. My father and my brother were involved in the very first one in the early 80s, the Bredalbin ESA, Environmentally Sensitive Area. And we've been involved in agri-environment schemes ever since then. And there's always going to be a place for them, but there's a lot of agri-environment happens in many places without having to be in a scheme. So once we get to the top of this field here, I'll just give you an idea of what we've done here. This is in fact I'll try and show you. This is a 9 hectare block that we keep clear of livestock for a few weeks in the spring, or a couple of months actually in the spring, and then after it's a habitat mosaic that it's under right now, and we try and look after not only the wildlife that's on it, but the habitat that's on. There's a lot of wildflowers here, there's a lot of different colours, which is fantastic to see, which a lot of insects, bees in particular, thrive on, and we try and keep that for that sort of habitat mosaic for a couple of months with no grazing on it, and then after that we then graze it again later on. This year it's gotten away from us. That brings its own challenges, because what we should be doing is doing it, instead of going by a date, we should be going by what's actually happening on the ground. Because what we do here, I'll just stop here for a second, we're okay yet for time. So what we do here is, once it gets to the 15th of May, we take all the stock out here completely. There's a little bit of wind there, hopefully you can still hear me. So we take the stock out of here completely from the 15th of May, but what happened this year, it was such a late spring, the grass grew that fast that the peewits and oyster catchers that were on here, they like open grazed landscapes. So what happened was, because we took the sheep off of here, they went back out the hill, they came off of here and then went up onto the hill where it was getting grazed. So it's all about what's happening on the ground. We shouldn't be too prescriptive by dates. I think that's really important. We need to learn from that. So again, I'm just going to show you, hopefully you can see that, but the landscape we have in Scotland is something that we really need to be proud of, and a lot of that habitat mosaic that we're seeing just now has been carved out by agriculture and food production. Now what I will show you when we go a bit further up, you can probably see it over the top of the hill there, but that's a 500 acre block of forestry, solid forestry, commercial forestry. We'll have big issues with that. When you see the habitat mosaic we have here and the woodland strips that's across here, that's fantastic. It's helping with carbon sequestration, it's helping with the farms, it's helping for its wildlife corridors, but when you see that block of forestry over there, if you walk into that right now, it's like a desert. There is nothing in it whatsoever. All that's in there is just dead needles, and it's like desertification. Any wildlife that was in these solid blocks of commercial forestry have now come out on agricultural land to feed and breed and whatever they do. So that's a concern. So yes, we want to meet forestry targets. We want to maximise our carbon sequestration, but given how green we are in Scotland and how the science is now beginning to show how proper grazing management can be every bit as good as commercial forestry, we need to be very, very careful we don't act too early and make rash decisions that we can't go back on. So that's us just heading out onto some of the open hill now. We've got, I should have said earlier on actually, I'm just keeping mind the time, but we're okay. I should have said earlier on, our ewes here are split, so we've got some continental ewes in the low ground, then we'll have some Cheviots as we come higher up, and then black faces as we go higher up, and then obviously we saw these continental cows we had down at the bottom, and as we go higher up the hill, then we've got the Highlanders up on the hill. So you'll see that as we go up, and I'll just show you as we're driving here. You can hopefully see that. Now the advantage, and you can see the sheep right over on the far side there. So the Cheviots and black faces are up on the hill, and the advantage of this is, again, when it comes to climate change, if we don't graze landscapes like this, what can happen is it just grows into rank vegetation. If that rank vegetation gets a hold, then later on, if you have a really, really dry year, then all that will happen is it could go up in smoke, and the carbon loss from that would be absolutely colossal. So I think we've always got to remember that grazing management is so important. You can maybe see now what I mean about that blanket forestry on the other side. That's doing absolutely nothing for biodiversity right now, because we do have three challenges ahead of us. It's not just about climate change, it's biodiversity, and it's also food production. Because as I said earlier on, if we don't produce it here, then where are we going to do it? What are we going to do? We're going to import it from other parts of the world. That doesn't really do anything for climate change. So it's so we've got a lot of concerns right now when it comes to farming and food production in Scotland, and indeed right throughout the UK. There's a lot of science out there that's telling us that we have to act, and we have to act now. Sometimes I feel that because of productivity and using science and technology, we're already acting and we're already doing what we can. There is absolutely no doubt about it. We could do more, and I think we need to be encouraged to do more, but we need to have the consumers behind us and recognise, so that they know that we are trying our best right now. And I have to say a big thank you to the consumers, because I don't think I've ever seen such consumer confidence in the products that we're producing in the UK as we've seen since this terrible pandemic that we're really still under. And it's great to see that, because I think our consumers more aware now than ever that we need to be able to feed ourselves, and we know the safety that's behind our food, we know the green credentials that's behind our food, and we need to support that, because if we support it here, we will be able to produce our food for a long time to come yet, and that's what we want to do. As I said earlier, this is a fantastic job to be involved in. It's a lot of work, there is no doubt about that, and Katrina here's and my youngest daughter very keen in agriculture as well, and I think it's, we have to make sure we've got a viable future so that we can continue doing what we're doing. So I'm hoping, I'll just try and let you see this out here. We're getting closer. We're getting a little bit closer to the hill, and with any luck they're not too far away, the Highlanders. They do a fantastic job up here, and again it's about them grazing management and what they're doing when they're up here all summer. And indeed this is the bit where we feed them, because we're coming up to a fence shortly and they're out beyond the fence at the minute, but we feed them in this sort of in-by hill in the winter, providing we can get up here when they do need supplementary feeding, because we're now getting up to a fair height that we do need to have we can get quite a lot of snow up here. It is quite a bumpy road, as I'm sure you can gather. Katrina's doing her best, honestly, so it gives you an idea. I should really let you see the loch as well. There it is over there. So here's hoping. We've got, I think we're okay for time. We're probably going to manage about, if they're not too far away. Is there some up there, Trine? Okay, if we stop at the fence, if we stop at the fence, we'll give them a shout. Hopefully they'll come in. We don't have a bag, do we?
No, we don't.
Quite often if you bring a bag to beasts, it's amazing how they come running. I'm sure everybody that's involved in agriculture know that. We should have had this a bit better organised and maybe had them fed for a couple of days. But usually they're very... yeah, I can see some of them.
Yeah, they should come.
Yeah, hopefully they'll come. We're alright. I think I'm allowed an extra couple of minutes. I'm sure somebody said to me I can get an extra few minutes because I think there's another discussion at 4 o'clock. I hope everybody's enjoyed themselves today. I know you've been in parts of England, parts of Wales and the borders and up here today, so I think it's fantastic. We did Open Farm Sunday, a physical Open Farm Sunday 2 years ago, and I think we got as much out of it as what the people that came to visit. It was fantastic. So we'll stop, yeah. Oh, that's fine. That's fine, that'll do. Yeah, just on you go, Trine. Bro. Right, here we go. We might be lucky. I think it's really important that... I think it's all... Yeah.
There, look, they'll come.
Okay, right, let's go and give them a shout. Again, we're pretty high up here, but you look what's happening here. We're looking at this, we're keeping this hill. Yeah, just go give them a shout, Trine, aye. Hopefully you've got a couple of spare minutes. Maybe you can hear them there. Come on! This just shows you how far out they are. Are they coming, are they? She's got better eyesight than I have. Oh yeah, okay, right. This gives you, maybe I'll have to hold this phone really steady. But it's a white bred. These Highlanders are not pure, so the bull is running down. He's a white, I don't know if you can see him. He's pure white. He's a white bred shorthorn, and he's coming. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll meet you halfway. You got the time with you, Katrina? I'm obviously not as fit as I used to be. This is actually where Highlanders should be. Quite often we see Highlanders in parks. It doesn't really do it for me. It's not where they should be. If you've got good grass parks, you should be as productive as you can be. Okay, keep shouting now. Sadly, that's the problem when we just don't know where they're going to be. I'm sure you can hear them now. the white calf I'm seeing. The white animal I'm seeing wasn't the bull, it's a calf. Sadly we lost a calf in the spring and we've got a purebred, white bred calf to go on her. So, but they're coming. You can see where they've been grazing this bit here. Right, I'll go to the top of this knoll and then hopefully they'll be not far away. Here we go. Come on, 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 come on then, come on, come on. Hopefully you can see them all stringing out there. You're not getting a good view in this, I don't think. It's hard to see there. Come on then, come on, come on. Come on, girls. Here we go. Sadly they're not all here. The big bull's not here, so there must be a few more cows over the top. Yeah, lass. Sadly, I don't think I haven't got a watch me now because I've walked into the hill and I think I must be out of time. I'm sure somebody will, somebody could cut me off if need be. I'll just go for another 30 seconds, pan round and then say thank you very much for watching. I hope you understand that farmers throughout the UK are doing their absolute utmost to not only address climate change, look after biodiversity, but the most important thing we'll have to be able to do is produce food. Thanks very much for watching and I hope you've had a good day. Bye.